So coming to our last of the year Entrepreneurship Council meeting, and welcome those guests that are here for the first time to one of these, and those that are longtime members. Welcome. Very happy to be capping this year with Luke Henry, who's one of our young entrepreneurs in our community. And I name off all the different things that you're doing would take a very long time, but that's part of what he's going to be talking to us about. But with ProScape, as the owner of ProScape, but also for Downtown Marion.
All right, thanks so much everybody for being here. I'm looking forward to a little bit of discussion. Really love hanging out with other entrepreneurs and business people. Like, gives me a lot of energy. So I appreciate all of you. I know a lot of the folks in the room, but just a real quick kind of history or introduction. Some people kind of know like one part of what I do, because that's where we interact. They may not know about some of the other parts, and just like all of you, I'm learning as I go. I'm humbled to hang out with you. So so I started in business at 13 years old, started mowing lawns. And so I love to tell the story. My first mowing job was for my great aunt and uncle. It took me 2.5 hours, and they paid me $5. And I did that gig for a while and saved up a little money for a push mower, and then got a few more lawns and started, kind of adding some more equipment. And here we are many years later. And now it's ProScape Lawn and Landscape Services. We've evolved. We have a branch here in Marion and then another one in Columbus. We employ about 70 people and provide service to 5 or 6 counties. So it's a pretty wide reach, and we've got a pretty big team. I've kind of served through all the different parts of the company and learned as I went and made tons and tons of mistakes. And so from that, I've learned lots of lessons though. So try not to look at them as failures, but just expensive lessons in some cases. And so I want to share maybe a few of those thoughts with you today. In 2018, I decided to kind of add some more excitement to my life, and partnered with Alex Sheridan. We bought about 10 buildings on South Main Street to revitalize and work on. And as we started that, we found that while people were excited about our vision, we had trouble like really attracting anyone who was going to operate businesses out of these buildings in the early days. And so, forever the entrepreneur just said, well, okay, we'll just start the businesses and operate them. Seemed like a great idea at the time. And then we'll just, kind of kickstart this thing and get it going. And then hopefully, once we prove the concept, some more people will come around. So in addition to fixing up all of these, 150-plus-year-old buildings, we also started and now operate Topped Ice Cream Eatery, the Brickyard on Main, the Union, event space, Style 124 salon suites. And so that's been a great learning experience. So in addition to having this, little bit larger business with, some team and some processes and some resources that we've refined over, 20 some years, we've also got a few little baby businesses that we're just starting and trying to build teams and build processes and learn things about totally different industries that I knew nothing about. And thought that, some concepts were transferable and some of them are, but there's also a steep learning curve on some of these things. So it's been a journey and been a lot of fun. So the one question I get all the time, and I try to be, humble about the things I do, because truly it's the team that we've built, the teams that we've built, and people just ask me all the time and say, how do you, keep all of that going? And the answer is teams, people, and processes. There's constantly something on fire with that many things. There's just every day there's something on fire. Something's getting inspected, audited. Somebody has COVID. We're changing policies. We're doing, there's always something on fire. And so we've, built teams that handle those things, and it's beautiful when it all works. So that's what I want to talk a little bit about. And then I'd love to, just kind of have some discussion, some conversation, and questions that, you all have either for me with things that we're doing, or, maybe just something that you hear strikes a chord about maybe something that we put in place that would be helpful in your business or whatever. love to have those conversations. So, I guess I'll start by asking, I know that the answer to this for some of you, but how many of you have currently at least one like team member on your team? Everybody have, most people have, or, want to have, or have once had somebody on their team. And so, building teams, here's what some of the lessons that I've learned as I was sitting down, just kind of wanted to bring something that would be of a little bit of value for folks, maybe a reminder, or maybe it's a fresh perspective. Kind of three things that I identified when you want to build a team, build a community around a cause. What do we have to do? So first of all, I said, paint a picture of what success looks like. Paint a picture of what success looks like. I think often as entrepreneurs, we start these things, the picture is so crystal clear to us, and to everyone else, it's not. And so one of our main jobs is to connect the dots for that vision and how that comes to today's reality and how everyone fits into that mission. I think that we derive passion and purpose from understanding how our work day to day connects with that vision and that mission of our company. And again, I think that comes naturally to some of us, but to some of our team members, it's not as obvious. And so our job is to be the chief reminding officer. The chief reminding officer, as among other things, we've got to remind everyone what success looks like, why we're doing what we're doing, what that looks like day to day, what our core values, what our mission looks like with workflows on, and then just constantly keep that out in front of everyone day to day. I see that as one of my most important jobs. So the first thing I noted was paint a picture of what success looks like. Second is look for rising stars. I have one of my most gratifying things about business and about being in business all these years is that look back at the success stories of the people that came into my organizations as just kind of a entry-level position, and now they're the top leaders on our team. That is like one of the most gratifying and just things that connects with me and that makes all of the trouble worthwhile is when you can take somebody that you see that spark, you see something in them, you speak into that, and then with their hard work and dedication over time, they really make something of their career and of their life. And if our small businesses can do that, that's really, really meaningful work. And so I hope that you're looking for rising stars, on your team, and hopefully seeing things in people that they don't even see in themselves. So, I have a couple of instances of that are the most notable. So the top two leaders in my organization, ProScape, are people that both started as entry-level people. And they, one's been with me 8 years and the other 10 years. And, they've kind of worked their way up. And, neither, I don't think, had aspirations of necessarily, staying with our company or even staying in our industry, but they believed in the mission. They believed in the meaningful work that we're doing. We spoke into them, really invested in their skills and their training and their leadership, and have helped them, grow to the point that they're now having that impact on others. And it's a super gratifying process. So look for rising stars and set the example for them. So much more is caught than taught, I've found. And so we have to make sure that we're, living the values and setting a good example for it. So again, number one, paint a picture of what success looks like. 2, look for rising stars. And then 3, I put get out of the way. Get out of the way. And this is something that I've certainly had trouble with. I think especially those of you that founded your businesses, it's very hard to get out of the way because you're used to doing the work and used to doing things a certain way. And sometimes we get a little tunnel visioned on the way that things can be done and have to be done. But if we're really investing in tomorrow's leader, they're going to bring fresh ideas and fresh ways of doing things that are probably better than what we've done. And I think the other thing that, in kind of looking back at this journey for me, was that someone once told me that you're going to have to accept a temporary loss of excellence or performance in the time that somebody's getting up to speed. So I'll say that you're going to have to kind of suffer a temporary dip in performance while someone else is getting up to speed. Yes, maybe you can do something very, very well, but in order to invest in that next person, there might be a little bit of a dip while they learn it and get good at it and get up to speed. But then most likely, once you're out of the way, they're going to accelerate past what you were able to do because they're focusing exclusively on that thing. And they are going to do it very, very well. If you've done the other parts of it, of this process where you're creating a compelling vision, they know what the mission is and are there to execute it. You've got the right people that are doing it, and you get out of their way, really great things can happen. So I've seen this in our businesses. You know, again, we're starting this process kind of over with some of these, you know, baby businesses that we are starting and growing here, that we're now, you know, bringing new people on the team, investing in them, and starting this process over to get them to where they can be tomorrow's leaders, and they're running these businesses. And hopefully I've learned enough lessons that now I can do it a little bit more quickly, and you know, I can get out of the way more quickly, kind of get them up to speed than what I did the first time around, where it was much, much more painful, as you know, I was clunky and didn't know what I was doing. It was the lid to progress in a lot of cases, and so trying to improve on that as we go forward. So those are a few just kind of thoughts that I thought might be helpful to share. And I know that, you know, some of you are really on a growth trajectory with your businesses, and it's, you know, it's exciting to see that. And hopefully these, you know, this little bit of, you know, kind of lessons learned from my perspective are a little bit of something that can throw some fuel on the fire of what you got going. So what questions can I answer, or what kind of discussion can we have around some of this team building, or, you know, if you have questions specifically for me, let me know how I can help. Yeah, Frank.
Luke, I heard you speak quite a few years ago in Delaware. And I was fascinated by where you had come from and what your educational background.
Yeah.
And so if you wouldn't mind touching on that, and then allowing us to understand how you made the move, which was about 180 degrees from where you were. Correct?
Yeah. So some people know that I started mowing when I was young, and I made a little bit of money to, you know, kind of spend while I was in high school, but the ultimate goal was to put myself through pharmacy school. So I earned a doctor of pharmacy degree, and just practiced for 2 years before I decided to quit that job and pursue small business and some of these ventures on a full-time basis. So yeah, it was definitely a big turn, you know, to go from, you know, kind of blue collar to white collar back to blue collar. You know, I'm from Morrow County, Mount Gilead originally, so I came from like a kind of agricultural background. My grandparents both had farms, and so I think that I just figured out that was what I enjoyed doing and wanted to be more around that environment. So it served me well. I really enjoy it. And again, these days, the most gratifying part is being able to have an impact on people and to lead teams and build teams. And, you know, it gets to a point where that's, you know, really what drives you every day. So yes, thank you for remembering that, Frank. Flattered that you remember that. Sorry, I'd forgotten about talking in Delaware, but I remember now.
Well, and I haven't. So there.
Well, good. I'm glad I stuck with you. Yeah, well, I was curious, Luke.
So when you acquired the ProScape, which is kind of funny that it also had ProScape in the name of it, Columbus, what was your biggest challenge, I guess maybe managing from afar, one, but the two, you were blending. You know, it was us and them, and now it becomes us, or, you know, us versus them. Now it's fully us within the company. So what was your biggest obstacle maybe with the merging of those two operations into one, and how you overcome?
Yeah. So as Logan mentioned, you know, the way here's about almost 4 years ago, we bought another company in Columbus, which was, yeah, it's funny. They were called ProScapes of Dublin, and we're ProScape Lawn Landscape Services of Marion. And I had heard of them kind of through the years, and so I reached out to them. And long story short, we ended up acquiring that business. And it was a fairly small business, 10 or 12 people, and, you know, associated equipment, vehicles, and so forth. But 10 or 12 people added into a company at that time of, you know, 30, 40 people. It was a, you know, fairly significant kind of merging. And I think that the biggest challenge was the culture piece of it. That they had not only ways of doing things technically, you know, with jobs that were different, but also they had ways of approaching things. They had a culture that was different from what ours was. You know, if any of you don't think that your company has a culture, you're wrong, you know, because every business has a culture, either by design or by default. And we wanted to do it by design. You know, it's very important. It's something we worked on for years, is to have a good culture, have a place where people want to come and work, and people enjoy their jobs, and, you know, working towards something bigger and greater. And that wasn't necessarily where they were coming from. So it was really just a lot of these same principles that I mentioned, but just more often. You know, we do a thing we've done for years that I think has helped that, and it helped when we brought those new team members on, is once a quarter, we do a state of the company report, little thing where we bring all of our team members in to one location. We have breakfast catered, and get to sit around the table a little bit and just kind of get to know one another a little bit, have a little kind of outside of work type of time. And then I give a little bit of a presentation on how things are going, how the business is going, things that have went well, things that aren't going so well, and kind of where we're going in the next quarter. And that little discussion, I think, has been really formative for our business to help keep everybody informed, make them feel valued, make them feel heard, help them understand where we're going and what we're doing. And even some of our core, you know, kind of leadership team still needs that reminder, you know, hey, these are our values, this is our vision, this is who we are, this is what we stand for, this is how we do business. Here's some, you know, tactical things that we're working on in the coming quarter, and gets everybody aligned. It's really energizing. And I think, you know, that those types of activities were super.
I think, kind of touched on it earlier, but when you start multiple small businesses, I think I struggle with getting out the way of it. Because I think I don't really want to know how to do everything. So how do you take yourself out the employee role to, you know, more the manager, just want to manage everything?
Yeah.
So I still feel like an employee. I still get up every day at 4:30. You know, don't go do my runs and stuff like that. I think I struggle with, you know, the employee versus the owner type deal.
Yeah.
How do you transition?
Well, I think so much of it comes with finding someone that can replace you in that role. You know, and that's what I was talking about, I guess, with the kind of finding the rising star, you know, looking for somebody that has some of the attributes, you know, even if they can do something that's, you know, 60, 70% as well as you, take them under your wing, start training them, investing in them, teaching them what you know, teaching them to do what you do, and then you can start kind of stepping away a little bit. A word picture that I use a lot with our team that might be helpful to you, Marcus, is the concept of the rope. And so, you know, at some of our state company meetings and stuff, I've kind of taken a rope and we've done this illustration where somebody stands beside me and say, hey, this is Jimmy. He's brand new our team. You know, we're training him. He's got the end of the rope. I got this end of the rope, and I'm not like giving him much slack. You know, he's real close to me here. We're working very closely. as he builds aptitude and he proves his competency over time, I start to let that rope out a little bit more and a little bit more. And so he's got a little room to move around. He's got some autonomy. And more time goes by, he learns the business, he learns what the skills he needs and so forth. We let out more and more rope to him. And so even when, he's been here a long time, I've still got a hold at the very end of the rope. So I'm not just completely like letting go of my responsibility in the relationship and just saying, hey, go do whatever you want, whatever. Even if the rope's very long and he's, doing almost everything all by himself, I've still got a hold of the rope because we're still interacting on a periodic basis. I'm giving structure, giving vision, making sure that he understands what, his role is and how it fits in with the organization. But I think that that's a helpful, kind of way to do it. But I see too often people either never let the rope out at all, and they keep this person and they're like more of like a puppeteer than they are a leader, or they just let go of the rope and leave, and so neither one is very healthy. And so I think that the better we can get at like, hey, we're still here, we're still providing support, we're still providing some boundaries to this working relationship, but you also have a lot of, autonomy in the role. And once you get to that point where you've got some people that they're leading, they're competent, they're doing the work that you need to do, I started, I was like my own worst enemy with this sometimes. And when I named a general manager of ProScape about 4 or 5 years ago, I just literally just stopped going into the office as much. And because I knew that I just couldn't help myself. I'm like a recovering controlling leader. And so, I'd go to the meetings and Luke, I'm a controlling leader. I keep putting old Luke on the bus. He keeps showing back up. And so I couldn't trust myself to be in the office and not kind of like overhear situations and say like, oh, hey, I heard you talk about this. Here's what you need to know. And so I just, said, hey, for a little while here, I'm just going to kind of make myself scarce, let him establish himself as the general manager, let some people make some small mistakes, figure it out a little bit on their own. And then, I'm still there, still as a resource. Then we started getting a kind of a meeting structure to where, I could still give periodic feedback, again, keep the vision and the values that everyone was aware of. And I didn't lose that. Still had kind of control from the big picture standpoint, but day to day allowed people to do what they do. Yeah. Hopefully that's all.
Oh, no.
Well,
I have a
I
question. I have a question.
I'll you go first, Raymond.
Yeah,
Actually, my first comment is there a mime? Is there mime work in the future for? I feel like it's a good movement there. So maybe
I could, yeah.
just add that to your repertoire. Just Raymond.
yes, sir. Yes, you talk about the three focus area division, obviously finding the rising star and get out your own way, which is obviously is becoming a leader. I want you to talk, I know you touched on it a little bit, but I want you to touch on it a little bit more about, the business working without that leader, and that fear factor could be a little bit of trust and not knowing how to delegate into transition to be a leader. And those are some of the factors that contribute to that person keeping on to, being the center of attraction or want to have, total control, as you said. Talk about a value of a mentor, if that helped you a lot, or anyone, that support group that really provide you with that transition, because sometimes you can't do it alone and you need that supporting factor, similar to a business coach or some mentor to help you with that transition. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So question basically, what has been in my business the role of like mentors or business coaches? And that has been an important part of it. I think that, I got a couple of business coaches in the audience here that I think business coaches provide a great amount of value. We have used a couple of different firms or coaches through our time. And it is so helpful to have someone with an outside perspective. And so one company that we worked with, they were, it was like a licensed organization. So it was almost like a franchise in a sense, where they were licensing us use of their kind of business systems and processes and some of that kind of thing. That was really helpful. I got a real good business education because, again, I have a lot of education, but none of it was related to business. And so I never took an accounting class or any of those formal things like that. So I learned a lot through relationship. But then we've also, for several years now, been working with a business coach that really does more just coaching. And he works with me a little bit, but then also with our team. I think that sometimes an outside person can get so much more information out of our teams. Sometimes that kind of neutral party is very helpful to help draw out maybe some of the frustrations or the concerns. And I think especially as the business is growing and as your leadership is growing, sometimes people don't feel like they can come and talk with you directly, maybe as the owner or the point leader of the organization. And so I think the business coaches and consultants or whomever you may work with sometimes have a really good in with getting out some of that information, as well as providing ideas, structure, and just that outside perspective. So we've been very blessed to work with some good business coaches. I've had a few kind of mentors throughout my tenure as well, just people that kind of came along at the right moment that were a little farther along in business than me and provided some insights and just some ideas. And sometimes just the power of an idea, the power of a new perspective on an issue that you're having can be totally transformative. So being involved with even just groups like this, or doing chamber events, little ideas that you get, peer groups, industry groups.
SBDC.
I encourage, SBDC. I encourage all that type of activity because I think there's great value. I think too often, I know for me, something that I didn't do well was early on, I just tried to do too much myself. I wasn't willing enough to kind of put myself out there, ask for help, find a mentor, find a coach. And since I've incorporated those activities, I feel like that has really accelerated our growth and our impact.
My question was going to stack a little bit on Marcus's about when you have multiple even businesses that you're involved in, how to compartmentalize. I guess you said there's always a fire every single day. Do you find that some days, do you have a set schedule in your head of like, on Mondays, I'm going to start my day at ProScape. On Tuesdays, I'll start my day on Brickyard. Or are you thinking that through in terms of where's your structure come from? I guess with that, how to like focus on one without losing sight of
that can be a challenge sometimes. But for me, the way that I best manage it is to have structured meetings that are on each day. So like Wednesdays, for example, our whole morning is meetings at ProScape. Other days there's meetings that, we're meeting with Brickyard. So I actually have my calendar is actually blocked, in terms of this is like Brickyard time. This is, Main Street time. This is, development, downtown development time. So it's not a perfect system. It has to ebb and flow a little bit, again, if a pipe bursts somewhere and, scrambling and, have to kind of get pulled off tasks, like that happens. But that's what helps me compartmentalize. And even within, one single business, even still, you still often have, kind of different parts of that business. So you're meeting with, the sales team, meeting with the accounting team, meeting with the operations team to kind of, look at different things. And I think that that's what makes a lot of sense as to.
even when all those different teams are just yourself, like being able to separate.
Right.
I need to be on the sales hat for this time is what I'm hearing, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that even when when you're the team, you know, in the early days, you know, you're kind of doing everything. You still, if you're able to compartmentalize that, say, you know, hey, Tuesdays, we're gonna, you know, I'm going to do, you know, cold calling, or, you know, I'm going to work on business development. And, you know, I'm just gonna discipline myself to do that exclusively. And then, you know, Wednesday, you know, calling on existing customers and so forth.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
you kind of answered part of what I was going to ask, and it was kind of, you seem to have a good process for identifying and developing leaders in your organization. I guess the next problem we face in this environment is retention.
Right.
So once you've identified and put time and effort into these folks, what are you doing to retain them? Are you, offering to try to spread them across your businesses to make sure there's upward mobility? Or I guess I'm just throwing out to, what is it that you do for retention of these rising stars that you've identified?
Yeah. Well, that is certainly top of mind, like for all of us, you know, is recruiting and retention, you know, especially in today's environment. You know, it's an employee market. People can kind of go wherever they want and, you know, sort of name their price. So, you know, I think the main thing is just that we have to create workplaces where people want to work, you know, and, you know, we do some silly things, you know, we do, you know, staff things, and we'll do potlucks in the office. And we did a thing this year with our field staff for people that had perfect attendance. We did a once monthly drawing for like a pretty big item. It was like a $500 or more item. So, you know, a Yeti cooler and Cedar Point passes, or a Blackstone and, you know, outside chairs, or, you know, these different packages for everybody that got perfect attendance. They got their name in the hat and they got drawn. You know, so everything from those kind of, call them sort of gimmicky, you know, just kind of fun things, to other, you know, more structured things that are just around culture and providing a place where people want to work, treating people with respect, showing them that there is upward mobility in your organization, and really caring about them as an individual. I think that there has been a great positive shift throughout kind of this COVID, post-COVID, you know, workforce that has made employers have to kind of like tighten up our games a little bit, that we can't just treat employees as units of production. You know, they're people. And I think that we have to make sure that people are seen for who they are, they feel heard, and just a lot of those little things. You know, it's like there's no one silver bullet. We actually were just doing staff reviews with our leadership team, and we give them a self-evaluation. One of the questions is like, if we earmarked $10,000 for like retention or kind of, you know, employee, you know, programs, what would that look like? And people had all kinds of, you know, different ideas, and those are fun. And, you know, just I think we have to do kind of a lot of little things, but also, you know, around the culture of just, you know, being a place where people want to work. If you think about it, if you or I thought about, like, if I asked you, hey, when in the last year were you just feeling so empowered and loving what you did? You just felt like you were in the right place, you're in your groove. How much of that had with how much money you were making? You know, I think that if we look back at those times where we really felt like, man, I'm in the zone, I'm really working, I'm doing my life's work right now. It had nothing to do with, that because I got a bonus or something like that. It probably had something to do with, I liked the people I worked with. I felt like the work I was doing was meaningful. You know, I was energized. There's great energy in my workplace. And so we have to bring that, I think, to help retain people. So it's not easy, but it's, you know, it just has to be like a top of mind thing, and just constantly part of who we are and the culture that we're putting together. Martin, you had something?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you to paint the picture about your vision for downtown development housing, but I just want to first reinforce your comment about the stars development, because your answer to Marcus, I like to go to the details too. You want it to be perfect. The satisfaction of running the way it always does.
Yeah.
But the satisfaction of seeing somebody that was overlooked, excluded by everybody else, wrong neighborhood, wrong book, didn't have the resume, but they decide that they're gonna claw their way up and spot whether people believe in them. The satisfaction, when you give them the opportunity to some of those things you want to manage, see them do it, you know, outweighs that satisfaction of seeing it right first.
Yes.
And then eventually, if they find a way to run it better than you felt the
Yes.
perfect anyway.
Yes.
So, yeah, this is reinforcing on so how you like, oh, it's satisfaction when you find that rising star who was excluded by everybody else in the shop. You know, when you see them start to put the light goes on and they see they can't do it, the satisfaction is bigger than saying you're doing it perfectly. And then eventually they're doing it perfectly or more than perfectly because they look at it from your approach. So I'm talking about pretty great what you've been doing, something that we never expected. Historically, what we would have in downtown, things never come back. I like downtown housing. What do you see about the next thing? What's the triggering event to do more downtown housing? You know, I see Marion Tech with this class got to be nice with enough student housing clusters.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, to paint the picture, what my vision is for downtown is just a bustling center of activity and the place where people come for community. You know, so that includes, you know, offices and small businesses that are operating down here during the week. That includes entertainment and dining options throughout, you know, the evenings and weekends, and specialty retail and events. And I think we're starting to see the pieces of that come together. But in my mind, it has to be sort of an ecosystem, and it has to be something that's driven by, you know, economics. You know, we have to bring things that are going to be sustainable and things that play well together. So, you know, we first set out to have in downtown what I kind of call the date night experience. So let me back up for a second and say that, you know, there were some people doing some things in downtown before we came around, and you know, and certainly a huge hat tip to Lois Fisher and some others that have helped save and preserve some of these buildings and have, you know, brought them up to a really nice level. But what we were seeing with like new businesses as far as dining and specialty retail, there'd be like a new restaurant open or a new shop open, but it wasn't enough like critical mass. It wasn't enough of a draw to bring people downtown and keep them here. Yeah, people would maybe stop once in a while. They check out the new store once and then never come back. So what we aimed to do early on was to create, you know, kind of a date night experience at least, and then build out from there. So when I say a date night experience, I'm thinking of, you know, the couple that comes and, you know, goes somewhere for drinks, maybe does a little bit of shopping, goes out to dinner, and then, you know, gets, you know, ice cream afterwards, or, you know, goes somewhere else to you know, hang out with some friends. And so those were like the types of places that we tried to you know, add early on, and what the, you know, the experiences that we're now starting to really see and have with some new restaurants downtown, with, you know, the addition of Marion Brewing Company, Shovel City Drinkery, some nicer, kind of more upscale places, starting to see more and more specialty retail with, you know, Great Woman Boutique and Finding Center, Remarkable, Paisley Peacock, types of places where people can come, and they may not just come there on a, you know, just for no other reason, but if they're in the area and can couple that. We also looked very closely at salons. So I've now opened a second salon. So Style 124 Salon Suites was the first place. Then we just recently opened in 165 West Center, Elevation Air Plus Beauty Loft. And salons are a great driver of foot traffic. So in addition to the ones we have, there's also the Root. There's of course Nathan's Barbershop, 222 Brows. that Toy Jackson has. So all of these are places where people come on a frequent basis. And so that supports downtown dining and retail. And so again, we're doing this where it's an ecosystem where one thing leads to another, supports another thing. You know, somebody comes to get their hair done, meets a girlfriend at Topped for lunch, and then walks down to Charleston Place and, you know, does some shopping, and they, you know, go home and, you know, promise to do it again next month when it was, you know, time for hair day. And so, you know, these are the types of economic drivers that we're looking for. So we're at it, you know, we're looking to add more, we're looking to support more and more. You know, I've obviously no vested interest in Marcus's place, but, you know, I'm working hard to help promote him, and because it's important to our downtown community to have things that are going to support one another and work well together. So I think that's the really important thing. The other thing that I want to mention that I kind of want to leave you with a bit of a challenge with is the difference between living in a community and belonging to a community. And the difference that I see in my mind is there's a lot of people that live in Marion. You know, there's 65,000 people that live in Marion County, consider Marion County to be their home. So they live in the community. But when I look at their Instagram feed, you know, they're often going outside of the community for dining, for entertainment, for, you know, lots of different things that way. And, you know, hey, I go outside of the community too. I don't want to, you know, sound like I'm shaming one by any means. But I think that when we belong to a community and we're deeply invested in the community, we go out of our way to do things in the community and support the community. So that's, you know, being intentional about, you know, using local businesses, you know, for our business's purposes or our personal purposes, going out of our way to invite friends from out of town to try one of our local dining options rather than meeting them, you know, in Westerville or Gahanna, you know, near their home to go somewhere. That looks like promoting our local places when you have a good experience and getting to know the owners of some of the small businesses. It's one of my favorite things. You know, sometimes when I go to a local restaurant, I don't have the best experience that I've ever had, okay? Speaking honestly. But when I know the owner there, I know that they're super well-intentioned. I know that they're investing in our community. I know that they want what I want and that they're supporting our local places as well. I'm going to overlook that 10 times out of 10. And, you know, now I might, you know, tell that person, try to give them some constructive feedback because I really care about them and I want to see them win. But I'm never going to say anything about them on social media. I'm certainly not going to, you know, leave some bad review or whatever. But somebody who just lives in the community, they got no problem being a warrior with their thumbs and talking about that place. But if we're invested in the community, if we're really belonging to it, then I think our whole outlook, it's not about just me. It's not about the fact that I had the best experience of my life going and shopping or eating at this place. It has to do with the fact that I'm supporting my community. It's where I live. It's where I've chosen, you know, to invest my money and, you know, raise my family. And so I think that if all of us can really go out with that attitude and we can, you know, we can influence people with that attitude, man, I think that the sky is the limit for Marion, for not just for the downtown, but our, you know, for our whole community in our county. So yeah.
I have a question. I know we're at the end of our time, but you hinted in your opening comments about some of the infrastructure challenges you have with the buildings downtown.
Yeah.
Is that really pervasive? Is there cases where buildings have been kind of updated over the years, or if you invested in downtown and you're looking at new plumbing, new heating, new wiring? Especially to support a restaurant type business, the codes and all those.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a mixed bag, obviously. I mean, there's some buildings that have been kept up pretty well and some that have been somewhat updated, but, you know, where we chose to invest initially on South Main Street, those are the oldest buildings in the entire city and the county. I mean, they're old. You know, the building that Topped is in is the oldest commercial block in Marion. It's built in 1832. And, you know, what we found was that like there was layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. So like the top, we took off 8 layers of flooring. I mean, they just slap, you didn't like this one, slap a new one on, slap a new one on, slap a new one on. Same with the walls. I mean, it was like paneling with wallpaper over other paneling, over plaster, over lath, over brick, you know, and so. Yeah. So we chose to, you know, we just said like, if we're going to do this, we're going to take it all the way back to sticks and bricks because we don't want to just slap another layer on because we don't know what's behind some of these walls. And it was scary when we, you know, did that because some of what was behind there was in really rough shape. Fun fact, every building that we own on Main Street at least had one fire at some time in its history. Every building we discovered fire damage. So, which makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, you know, they're built with wood and you heat it with fire. So, I mean, something was bound to go wrong, like eventually, but, you know, they were in rough shape, some of them. So they've been very expensive to fix because we did choose, you know, like the Brickyard, for example, you know, there's like 3 original walls, the floor is original and the ceiling in some of it. Everything else is new. We tore part of it, the back off and rebuilt it. We tore the whole front off and rebuilt a new roof, new plumbing, new electric, new HVAC. And so, you know, hey, but now it's good to go, hopefully for another 50 years.
I guess just one follow-up to that does that seem to be much of an obstacle for the revitalization of downtown is the cost of rehabbing some of the areas?
Well, I think it's definitely an obstacle, although, you know, it's not an obstacle only in our community. I mean, you know, other communities face similar obstacles, and it's just a matter of, you know, there can be economic viability with these things. You know, it takes some doing. Sometimes you have to be a little creative in the way that we're doing the renovations, and we have to put strong businesses in these places that are going to be sustainable. You know, I mean, we can't put $500,000 into a building and then have a second-hand clothing store there. You know, and like back when real estate was cheap and, you know, people could buy these buildings for $50,000 and put another, you know, layer of paneling on and call it good. That's what was in there, you know, secondhand clothing stores, attorney offices, and tattoo shops. And, you know, we decided that we had a different vision. So, you know, in order to do that, it's going to take some money, but we're also going to have to put, you know, strong businesses in these places. And then we're going to have to create a culture, you know, and do a lot of PR to try to drive, you know, traffic here and kind of turn around some of the perceptions of what people thought about Marion. So, you know, in the last 3 weeks, I've given 3 tours to high school students, you know, and just it's just a lot of little activities like that where we're getting with these different groups. And, you know, I've talked to every Rotary and Lions Club and everybody else that, you know, needs to know what the vision is, what we're doing, what we've done, and where we're going so that they can start talking good about Marion and coming down. And, you know, the other thing I echo a lot is that there's plenty of parking. Okay, so let's debunk that myth, plenty of parking. And we've got to support our, you know, downtown with our dollars, not just our words. So, you know, I love when people come up and say, hey, I love what you're doing downtown, doing such a great job, high five. I was like, oh, great, you know, what all have you tried? Well, we haven't made it down there yet. Well, it's been 4 years. So, you know, if you're going to come, like, come ahead, you know, I'll give you the nickel tour. I'll buy you an ice cream cone. Like, you know, let's do it. So, you know, just keep that train rolling. Yeah, Frank.
Luke, I want to commend you and the rest as probably the ranking senior in this room. I grew up in a time rural, also Morrow County, but everything happened around Marion. Economically thriving, downtown was viable, and it was a destination. Marion, Ohio was a destination point.
Yes, it was.
And I've been away for a long time for a lot of reasons, back home, and I'm excited. And Matt and I have talked about this. I'm excited to see what's going on. It's hard work.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I'll respect our time here. I'll hang around if anybody wants to have any other further conversation, but, thank you again. Hopefully take these messages, a little bit of snippets back to your business. Again, anytime I get a crowd in a few years to listen, I'll do a little preaching about downtown stuff. So I appreciate you all listening, and hopefully again, take that out to your circles and, let's keep the tide rising.
I had a question.
Yeah.
You kind of laid out this whole picture, and I think it's really interesting that you're thinking about, okay, what kinds of businesses are going to feed the other business. I mean, like that's really thoughtful, I guess.
Yeah.
Are there others? If it's not a secret, are there other businesses that you're like, man, that could draw traffic?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, restaurants are the next piece. They truly are, and I mean, obviously, Amato's been coming soon for a long time. I know it's like sort of been it's a punchline at this point, but they truly are coming soon. I promise you. I mean, I've gotten to know the owners over the last few years, like very well. They've had a lot of trials, besides COVID, getting this open, but they're like within a month, I would say, or so of opening. Obviously, what Marcus and Simona are doing. So, there's restaurants are a huge piece, because I saw it when Taste of Memphis came to South Main Street. Even with Topped, I mean, with food and ice cream, I mean, there was decent traffic like throughout the day, throughout the week, but not like a sit-down restaurant where it's just wave after wave after wave after wave of foot traffic. And that's been a really, really strong driver of helping to feed, retail and, other specialty things, services in the area. So that's the next piece, I think, for us, is to just, have more dining options. And I think that some people are a little scared, like, oh, well, what about the restaurants we have if we get more restaurants? No, that's not the way it works. We're not splitting the same pie more ways. We're creating a bigger pie. And, because what people do is they see Downtown Marion as a destination, and they say, hey, we're going to go downtown for dinner tonight. And if Carr's Coney Island is, an hour away, then they'll say, oh, we'll catch them the next time. Why don't we walk down to Harding Harbor? And so, nothing to go somewhere else and kind of, bebop around the downtown. Whereas when you only have one or two restaurants, people are like, well, last time I went down, Harding Harbor had a half-hour wait. I don't want to wait, so we'll just go to Delaware. There'll be more options there. And we've got to create something where when we have a lot of options, people are going to, just plan on coming, and, they're going to have some variety, and they're going to go to different places, even if they're coming downtown, 4 Saturdays in a row, they can still go, 4 different places or more.
See, if you go to Delaware, you see restaurants on top of each other.
All right.
Oh, like you described.
Exactly. They're not dividing the pie. They're attracting more, making the pie bigger. Exactly.
Is there any effort to get the retail to have some better hours, so we're kind of matching that when I lived in DC, if you had a waited restaurant, you might go to the retail store next door and wander through and do stuff. Here we roll up the streets, our hours are limited. Weekend stuff is almost non-existent.
Yeah.
And it just seems to me as we're getting restaurants open and more people are walking around going to restaurants, the 2 times don't seem to match.
Yeah. I think that's something that's going to come with a little bit of time. I don't run any retail places, so I can't directly affect that. But, I think it's something that is, again, it's not a new problem. It's been a problem in many communities for many years. But I think that, the more that they see foot traffic, after 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, then they're going to, kind of clue into this. And again, that's going to come with a lot of the dining and entertainment options. So once we get those, that starts to help solve some of those other issues too. Because if there's not other destinations, people aren't going to come, to go to, Finding Center at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday night. But maybe if they're, going out to eat, they would. So once the traffic's there, then I think the retail will find them. So. Okay, well, like I said, I'll hang around. Thank you again so much. I appreciate you all.
Thank you very much. Great job.